Alabama and Ole Miss square off in an SEC West matchup, and these two teams are in different positions. Alabama is kind of scrambling for answers right now after two disappointing weeks, and Ole Miss has shown certain flashes that make them an exciting potential upset bid. You're looking at two teams that can put up points in a hurry when they're playing on their games, and you're looking at two talented defense that also can play a big impact in this game. I think the biggest question mark, the thing that's going to be under the spotlight the most, the storyline to watch is Alabama's quarterback play. You saw Jalen Monroe not have the best game against Texas and then gets benched. Then at USF, he doesn't play. They put in Tyler Buckner and they put in Ty Simpson, and it's a disaster. The rain didn't help, but this was a team that was not doing anything good offensively and couldn't figure out how to move the football. Now Jalen Milroe is back, and I think he should have played last week. Don't know all the details of why he didn't, but they clearly missed an aspect that he brings in terms of running the football, in terms of confidence that they needed. Jalen Milroe, even though if you look at the two interceptions against Texas, not good decisions. Simply just cannot throw those footballs. But the biggest thing is the plays after. And sometimes it's not about the mistake you make, it's about how you respond to it. And Jalen Milroe made a number of big plays after his interceptions, after his mistakes. And yes, obviously, you don't want him to make those mistakes, and you'll coach him up to fix those. But if you have a quarterback who's all of a sudden just going to be super timid, not try to take on big plays, take some chances, then what's the point of having him play that position? Jalen Monroe has the confidence to be able to make a mistake and then bounce back the next play and attempt to make a big play. And we saw that the second interception he throws a terrible pick. But then the next play, he rolls out and he's on the run and throws an absolute dart for a touchdown. So you're looking at a guy who has the ability to deal with adversity and move on from any frustrations that he might have. This is a team that needs that. They need someone who is a leader, who does not fold when the pressure comes on and when times are tough in games. And Jalen Milroe did not do that. Yes, he's maybe not the most talented quarterback, and maybe he doesn't make the smartest decisions all the time, but this is someone who is clearly the best option for this offense. And his rushing ability is clearly better than the other two as well. Now, some of that is on him. A lot of that is also on the offensive line. Alabama's offensive line gave up 5 sacks last week. No offense to USF, Alabama should not ever give up a sack to USF ever, unless it's like some fluke play with backups in. That was unacceptable. That was honestly more embarrassing than getting worked by a Texas defensive line that features a number of big players. I think that last week's performance was the most disappointing performance we've probably seen since UL Monroe. I think that Alabama has a lot of work to do. And yes, the quarterback position plays a role in that. But I also think that this offensive line has been extremely disappointing. And that's with plenty of 4 and 5 star talent. You have to find a way to give your quarterback time to throw and put him in better positions to make plays. You have too much talent on this roster to be able to struggle with a team like USF. And yes, the weather did play a role, but you can't make that excuse this week. Ole Miss doesn't care if it's raining. Ole Miss doesn't care if your offensive line needs time. They are trying to make this upset happen. And one way they can get that going is by getting Quinshon Judkins going early on. This Alabama defense played pretty well last week. I think that they're still a really talented team. I think that they're a disruptive defense, one that can make big play after big play. And getting Quinshon Judkins going helps ensure that you can get the job done and pull off that upset. 145 yards this year for him, 3.3 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. Not the best start, but there's been a few things that go into that. So I'm not super concerned about the slow start. Judkins is still one of the best college football players in the country, and the rushing attack has to get going in order to move the ball down the field and open up the offense because Alabama will load the box until Jackson Dart proves that he can move the ball down the field. I think if you're Ole Miss, speaking of loading the box, until further notice, you need to force Jalen Milroe to beat you with his arm. And I think that you're going to get torched at times, but I think that overall, that's a strategy that you have to find a way to send different pressures. You have to find a way to screw with Jalen Milroe's head. You have to give him different looks. Maybe look at one thing and drop players into different locations that make him second guess what he's doing or what he's seeing. Texas did a lot of that. They were able to confuse him enough where he makes poor decisions and gives the ball right back to their offense because Ole Miss can score points. We've seen that this year. It's just a matter of can they steal a possession or can they steal points by creating those turnovers? And like I said, the quarterbacks play a big role in that. And I think Jackson Dart and Jalen Monroe continue to be underrated because there are certain things that they do that make you scratch your head. And I think that the Tulane game for Ole Miss is a good example. Jackson Dart wasn't exactly a factor in that game early on until the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. And then he came in clutch. He needs to have a huge game against Alabama. Now, I'm not saying he needs to throw for 400 yards. I'm saying that he needs to be efficient. He needs to find a way to hit his open receivers and create explosive plays with his arm and with his legs. And he'll have help. There's plenty of talent to be able to utilize at his disposal. And it's just a matter of taking care of the football and finding ways, like I said, to get the ball to his playmakers. Jalen Milroe needs to do the same thing. This is a guy who has the talent to be able to make big plays. He can make big plays with his arm. It's just maybe not as good as some of the other players we'll see in the country, but he also has plenty of talent around him. I think that there are plenty of receivers that can make an impact. I think we've yet to see the ceiling for that group. And these two are the biggest X factors in this game, if you're asking my opinion. To be able to move the football down the field is largely on the quarterback position. And honestly, both of these guys can do exactly that. I think they can make big plays with their arm, with their legs, and opening up the offense will be the biggest thing for these teams. These are two teams, like I said, they have so much talent. And Alabama obviously does most of their work in recruiting. They do utilize the transfer portal though. So there's certain players that can help out. But I think that there's plenty of returning talent that they've recruited to campus that makes them a potential playoff team. Now, that playoff appears to be slipping away, and this is a big week to kind of make a statement that we haven't gone anywhere, but it's going to be a long season. It's going to be a tough season to be able to get back. I think that this defense will play a big role in getting them there, and it's just a matter of waiting for the offense to get things figured out. Dallas Turner, to me, is one of the best defenders in college football. It's just that I don't know if he necessarily is going to get the recognition he deserves because the offense will just need some time to figure things out. And if the offense continues struggling, that's mostly what people are going to talk about is why is this offense not doing what it needs to do? But he is an absolute stud. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think everybody knows as well, but both of these guys will fly under the radar, which is weird to say for an Alabama team. And then an underrated player on offense, Roydell Williams. I think that he had a big game last week, and I think that he continues to be a silent contributor where he is making big plays and people don't really talk about him, and that's all right. You can have certain players that fly under the radar that have big games and don't necessarily get the recognition that they deserve. You know that the coaching staff is pointing that out, though. For Ole Miss, obviously, we talked about Quinshon Judkins, the impact that he needs to have in order for this upset to happen. The defense also has certain players that can fit that role. Isaac Ukwu, the James Madison transfer, is one of those guys. Monty Montgomery is another player. There are a lot of talented players on defense, and Lane Kiffin just has to hope that Pete Golding can find a way to confuse Alabama's offense enough. Because if you look at last week and you come into this week, you're thinking that you have a great chance if you're Ole Miss. You're thinking that this is as good of an opportunity to win this football game as you've had in a while. And finding ways to put up points, best way that Ole Miss can take it to Alabama is put up points in a hurry. That nothing will make Alabama worried more than if you put up a quick 14, a quick 17, maybe even you put up a quick 21, get up to that 21 zip lead. That's going to make them tense up. That's going to make them question certain things and not play free and loose. And that's the best thing for you. So I think that with Lane Kiffin's play calling, I think Pete Golding's a good defensive mind that can switch things up. And with Alabama's struggles on offense, you might see an Ole Miss team that is ready to compete. Now you're also going against an Alabama team that is, I think, a little bit upset. I think they're a little bit more motivated. They lose. to Texas, and then they struggle against USF. This is a refocus week, and you're going to see a much better team in Alabama. The thing I struggle with here is picking this game. Ole Miss appears to be the better team in terms of playing a little bit better, has a little bit more momentum, but it's so hard to bet against Alabama. I think that is the hardest thing to do is Alabama is so good and they're so good at what they do and they have a winning program, but it doesn't feel like the Alabama of old. So because I don't want to just continue picking Alabama because they are able to just continue winning, it feels like this is a different time, and it feels like Ole Miss has the talent to be able to get the job done.